Everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and we've got some real special guests with us today. We have Beth Macy, who is the author of the book DOPESICK, and also the 8-part series on Hulu, DOPESICK. And you guys who follow the show, you've heard me talk about DOPESICK a lot. We also have a gentleman who's been on our show one time before, and it is an absolute pleasure to have Ed Bisch back. Ed, thank you, guys. And Beth, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today.
Of course, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I've just been really, really excited for this day. And we have my lovely friend, Andrea, here to join us today as the guest co-host.
I'm excited.
And it was cool because Andrea, we go to the same gym, and I was talking to her at the gym one day, and I'm like, oh yeah, here in a couple of weeks, we've got Beth Macy. And I was explaining who Beth is. And she's like, do you have a guest co-host? Because if not, I want to be the guest co-host. So here she is.
Great.
So, Beth, one question I did have. What inspired you to do this book, DOPESICK? And were you investigating like the Sacklers and how all this kind of started, or it just kind of came about?
It really just came up very organically in my reporting. In 2010, I had been a longtime reporter for the Roanoke Times here in Virginia. We're sort of right on the outskirts of Appalachia. And my colleagues had written about the scourge of OxyContin and how it had made crime, really shoot up in the early years. And they were some of the first people to ever report on it because, of course, Purdue targeted areas in Appalachia and places where there had been a lot of workplace injuries. So I remember that. But in 2010, the story that was on everybody's mind here locally was the fact that there was this kids were using heroin, and not just kids from the inner city, but more than that, most of them were from the wealthy suburbs. And so that was just an unusual story at the time. And so I followed these two families whose lives had been upended by heroin, what we then called the heroin epidemic, we now call the overdose crisis or the addiction epidemic. And I wrote a series just sort of putting readers on alert that, kids had started out trading around pills, and then they had, when the FDA or the DEA finally cracked down, you and I may not have known that heroin and OxyContin were chemical cousins, but the drug cartels surely did. And so people started flipping over. And now, of course, it's morphed into a fentanyl epidemic. But when I was casting about for a subject for my second book, or my third book, actually, around 2015, by that point, we were starting to catch on. There was a lot of research out showing that American life expectancies were going down for the first time in history, and largely due to overdose deaths. And so then I proposed a book, DOPESICK. I think the timing of it was really good. We got it made into this 8-part show. Goal was really to put the onus on who the real criminals were, not your cousin who's in jail for selling a user amount of heroin, but the business cartels that really started this.
Yeah. And so I don't know if the reason why I started this show is because of my wife's battle with alcoholism. I'm happy to say here, just this past Friday, December 9th, she hit 2 years sober. And I had a gentleman that I was working with who told me about the Hulu DOPESICK. And so we didn't have Hulu at the time. So we actually got on, they had a free 30-day trial, and we jumped on just to watch DOPESICK. And I think it was right around the 3rd episode, I believe, I was literally getting ticked off. I was really getting upset on how all this came about. I mean, I got goosebumps right now, even just thinking about it. And as the series went on, even my wife, she's like, how is this possible? how can they get away with this stuff? And it's like, well, it's the money. That's how I'm kind of looking at it. That's just my belief. They've got so much money, they can buy off people. And I've had issues with the FDA for years. And when I saw that part with the FDA and the Sackler family, and I mean, there was probably steam coming out of my ears.
Mm-hmm.
The way this series went with the true stories of these families and what they went through, and how at least Michael Keaton, who played the small town doctor, how he kind of got sold into this. And then of course he ends up getting addicted. I mean, yeah, I have been lost for words on this whole thing. And it really got me too. I don't remember what episode it was when the Sackler family, they were told that a lot of people were overdosing, and they're like, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to turn it around and put it on the addicts. They turn around.
Blame the abusers. They are the criminals.
Yeah.
They are the culprits. I mean, all that's true. We didn't make any of that up. It was all fact checked and legal reviewed, and it's the truth really is stranger than fiction, and it's darker too in many cases.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it was definitely dark, and one of the reasons too for starting this podcast is to, get rid of the stigma, because I don't remember the young gal's name that was in the show that battled, and she ended up dying. She ended up overdosing. And my wife was so upset. She's like, please, if any of them survive, please let her survive. Because you just both of us got drawn into her story, and again, I don't remember what Betsy, played
by Caitlin Dever, who was fantastic.
Yeah. She killed it. And I did a talk a couple of months ago at in a neighborhood, a protest with a sober living coming in, and the mayor gave me an opportunity to get up and talk, and I was letting people know, these people that you don't want in your neighborhood, who are in sober living, who are doing everything they can to get their lives back on track, this is someone's son, this is someone's daughter or mom or dad, and you guys are treating them or acting like they are some piece of trash, and they're not. They got stuck in something.
That's happening across the country. It's happening in a neighborhood near me. And look, the real benefit of the show, I mean, we hoped, was that it would help get rid of the stigma so that we could start working on that 87% treatment gap. And I write a lot about that in the new book, Raising Lazarus, the fact that only 13% of Americans with SUD have managed to get access to care in the last year. And that's an F, that's double failure.
Yes.
And when we just have to change the way we think about addiction, and particularly with opioid use disorder, many people were initially addicted because of the massive oversupply of pills in our communities. And when you tell that story, you see people's frameworks for thinking about it beginning to shift. We're not there yet. There's still too many barriers that we've got in place in our criminal justice system, in our healthcare bureaucracies, that prevent people, particularly people who have been using for a while, who have maybe lost their social capital, maybe lost their homes, their families, their advocates. Maybe they're even doing sex work in order to not be dope sick. For them, it's going to take, really going to them. And that's the crux of the new book, which is this concept of harm reduction, this idea that we have 7 million people who are addicted now.
Oh my gosh.
In this country. Yeah. That research just came out in June, and it was times 4 what had been previously known. And, more than 1/3 of families have been impacted. Going back to OxyContin in Ed's family. I mean, Ed Bisch, who's going to talk in a little bit, he's taught me a lot about this. He's just been a tireless advocate, not just for people with SUDs, but also, to place the blame where it belongs. Yeah.
And good for Ed, because man, all of us here take our hats off to him, and all the other people that he's working with, to go after this. And I mean, they're going after a monster, really, that's huge. And it takes some big kahunas for people not to stop, right? To continue
Yeah.
and put the blame where the blame should go, because they have destroyed thousands and thousands of families. And, I mean, Ed's one of them. He lost his son because of it. And there's other people out there just like Ed who, the same things happened to him. When you said 7 million people in addiction, is that just with the opioids, or is that with the drugs and alcohol and all of it?
That's just opioid use disorder.
That's just opioid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my heavens.
It's insane.
That's why I wanted to ask that question, because I'm like, well, is it combined? Now you add how many people are addicted to heroin, crack, alcohol.
No.
Well, I include, heroin is an opioid. I include all of that. That's an OUD number. And then when you look at the number of people that are on methadone or buprenorphine, which is the gold standard of care for OUD, it's tiny. And the drug czar himself, Dr. Gupta, told me that, basically 5% of that 7 million is being able to access MAT. And so that's a low-hanging fruit. We can fix that if we had the will to fix it. We know how to do it. We know it works, but we're not offering it at a scale to match the crisis, because we're not approaching the crisis with alacrity and urgency and organization.
Wow. I'm just still shocked on that number.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to ask, Andrea? You're just over here listening and absorbing.
It's just crazy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to watch the show.
Yeah. You will literally be shocked. And, we were talking a little bit before the show, and I've always been a big fan of Michael Keaton. I've always liked a lot of his stuff that he's played, especially Mr. Mom. I loved him in Mr. Mom. That was just flipping awesome. Yeah. How he portrayed that dog. I mean, again, I really do like what Ed was saying. They think that this is probably one of the best acting jobs of his career, and I would almost have to agree with that. He just he killed it.
And that story is a compilation of several different doctors, but the main doctor, who is a doctor I wrote about in the book DOPESICK, is this doctor from Tennessee named Dr. Steve Lloyd, who, just like Michael Keaton's character, got addicted, started swiping pills from his own patients, a lot of the details, including him like taking their current prescription, putting him in a drawer, and then giving him a prescription for a higher amount, which is what the rep was telling him to do, double the dose. And a lot of those strategies that you saw Keaton's character doing were straight from the words of and the experience of Dr. Steve Lloyd, who is now an MAT doctor, and he's actually in a chair of the Tennessee Opioid Abatement Authority. And so one of the goals with the new book, Raising Lazarus, is that with this money coming down from not yet Purdue, but the distributor money is beginning to come down, that we hope that the money will be spent in a way that really helps the crisis and helps, with that treatment gap. And Steve is in charge of how the money is going to be spent in Tennessee. So I feel good about that. He has really kind of figured out where the gaps are, particularly where criminal justice. And one of the things he does is he partners with this judge in rural Tennessee named Judge Dwayne Sloan to make sure that people in jail and in the court systems who have OUD get access to buprenorphine or methadone, and get counseling and really get wraparound services. So those things are so important.
That's really good. And it's we had some guests on last night. We do a live show every Wednesday evening, and we had a couple doctors on here last night from American Wellness, and there's a new product. I believe it's out of North Carolina. And matter of fact, this stuff was brought up in 1948. It's basically a pure form of vitamin B, and they call it NAD. And they have started using it on people who are in recovery, and they are seeing amazing results. People who are in recovery. So like my wife, even with my wife 6-7 months in recovery, she was still having those cravings for alcohol, and it's hard when that brain takes over, especially when you've been drinking as long as she has. That brain has a tendency, your subconscious, to really get you believing that you need more of it. So they end up falling off the wagon and going again. And they've been doing this slow intravenous drip with patients, and it's taking their cravings away. They're like, it's doing something with the brain that is just, it's firing in a different way to where they have completely lost their cravings, whether it's opioids, alcohol, or other drugs. And I mean, again, this has been around since 1948. And now this place in North Carolina, I guess, has been doing it for 20 plus years, and they're doing great results. And American Wellness up here in Utah just happened to hear about it. And of course, Dr. Elison was saying, no, this sounds too good to be true. There's no way, because he was helping some patients who have been in recovery, and he started doing some studies on it and calling back to these guys, and they're like, no, I'm telling you, man, this stuff is legit. So he started training with them, and now they're starting to do it. And the patients that he's treating, which have only been a few right now, just amazing results. So we're going, oh my gosh, this could be something else that could be added in to help people get back on their feet and get away from this epidemic that's hitting so many people.
Well, let me chime in. Hopefully time will tell if it really works, but we need more than a few patients. So time will tell.
We need evidence-based research.
The time is there. So this place in North Carolina has been doing it for 20 plus years. They've been treating patients all this time. Now the word is just starting to get out. So he's only treated a few patients here in Utah. So, and they've got patients that's coming in and doing like testimonials. It's like, this stuff, I don't know, it's just changing me. And again, it's all natural B1 or a B12. I got my notes on another paper, but they're seeing great results. And it takes people like yourself, Ed and Beth, and hopefully like our show and other shows, other podcasts that talk about addiction, with all of us getting out there and letting people hear our voices. I'm hoping that's going to be the start of a change, and I believe we're already starting to see a little bit of it. I actually went to a network group yesterday, and everyone in this network group all came from recovery centers, or they've all been in recovery themselves. And it was really interesting.
Yeah, I really think the special sauce to this is people in recovery, peers or peer support specialists. And some of the programs that I have seen, as I've reported across the nation in the last several years, particularly those that are doing really evidence-based harm reduction work, it's the peers that are really connecting with people, the people with lived experience in recovery. And so I'm also hoping that with this money that's coming down, that these programs are really getting out there, whether it be connecting with people when they overdose and they're at the hospital, getting them connected to peers as well as MAT, or, I write a lot about this jail program in Fairfax, which offers MAT in the jail. But not just that, the peers come in while they're in jail and start to work with them on their reentry plan, because we know that people are 40 times more likely at that moment in the first week when they get out of jail to relapse and die because they haven't been on opioids. They go back to their normal amount, and now fentanyl's in it. And so that's really, really important that we start to stitch up these places where people fall through the gaps. So I write about the Chris Atwood Foundation, and I just did a benefit for them the other night. where they basically talked the sheriff in the largest locality in Virginia into doing MAT in the jail and letting their peers come into the jail to work with people in this reentry plan. And then at the moment they get out, they pick them up and they take them to sober living or to a relative or wherever they've rearranged together. But that involved a whole new mindset, because a lot of sheriffs are afraid to try innovative things, because if they don't appear tough on crime, they'll be labeled, pansies or hug-a-thugs, and people are dying because of that. And so that's why it was so important to write this new book. And I write about these issues a lot in DOPESICK, and showing that we have the answers, we're just not using them to scale to match the crisis. And until people bother to educate themselves, hopefully before this has hit their own family, right? So it's like people don't want to look at it, they don't want to read it, blah, blah, blah. But then, all of a sudden they're ensnared in it and they need help.
Yeah.
And so that's why we really need, I mean, education and busting stigma, I think is the number one goal, or should be.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one of our goals here when we started this podcast. We're coming up on 2 years, which I'm just in shock. And to get rid of that stigma. Another thing, too, that I'm really having a hard time with, and I know we only have a few more minutes. I really have an issue with, why are we leaving our loved ones' lives in the hands of insurance companies? Because the insurance companies are the ones that determine how long someone stays in recovery. And I've got a good friend who we do speaking engagements together. And when she was in recovery, she come back off one of the weekend little field trips that they do with their patients, when they're in recovery. And all her stuff was sitting on the front porch. And she's like, why is all my stuff sitting out on the front porch? And I'm like, well, they told her the reason why we have to kick you out is because you haven't followed our rules. And she's like, that's bullcrap. I have followed all your rules. I haven't broken any rules. Well, she found out a week later, the reason why they kicked her out is because the insurance company said they're no longer going to pay for her recovery. So they're not going to keep her for free. So they booted her, and I won't say the name. It's a recovery place that's here in Utah. And just out of respect, I won't say the name. But again, it's, how does the insurance company know it takes 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months? They don't know.
Dr. Steve will tell you that airplane pilots and doctors are really the only ones that are getting evidence-based rehab care. And not everybody needs to go to rehab. Only 1 in 4 people actually need to go to rehab with OUD. But the government, they've invested so much in pilots and doctors that they'll invest a lot in their recovery. But typical person doesn't have access to that. They're 30 days or 28 if they're really, really lucky. But if you think about a lot of the 7 million I'm talking about who have lost all their social capital, many don't have insurance. Either they're not signed up for Medicaid or they live in a non-Medicaid expansion state.
Yeah.
And so I write a lot about North Carolina in the new book, and only about half of people with OUD are even able to get any treatment at all because they haven't passed the Medicaid expansion.
Yeah. See, that's both. I'm just gonna say that's bullshit.
Yeah,
it really is, because I know now that I've put myself in the addiction world because of my wife's addiction. I've talked to a lot of our guests who've been on the show and people at other events we've gone to. And, I would say 98% of them told me, it's like, I wanted to get clean. I wanted to get out of this mess that I made of my life. I just had no means of doing it.
Yeah.
So how can you, and then when you do get thrown in jail, I mean, my wife, she got thrown in jail many times because of her alcoholism. She would come home and she would say, well, I can tell you where to buy all the drugs now, basically, because all that information
so they learn
shared.
Even more when they go to jail. They learn how to use better.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Beth,
and most of the jails have no treatment at all. So we really have to work on that.
Yeah. Well, we want to respect your time. I think we've already got right into about the half hour, just a couple minutes. is there anything we here on the other side of addiction, is there anything we can do for you to help also spread the word? Is there just something that's, I don't know, that we can help promote or talk about, or if you have something that we can use as a link to put on some of our shows?
Yeah. Well,
'cause-
the new book is called Raising Lazarus, Hope,
Okay.
Justice, and the Future of America's Overdose Crisis. It's a follow-up to DOPESICK, and it really features not just the justice warriors like Ed and Nan Golden and Mike Quinn, who are really still working every day to hold the Sacklers' feet to the fire for igniting this catastrophe. But also, how are we going to get out of it? Because no matter what happens, even to the Sacklers or the distributors or whoever, we still have 7 million people with this.
Yeah.
And so the book really goes into detail, profiling innovators, harm reduction workers, sheriffs that are willing to take a political risk to take a new approach because they know what they've been doing with the drug war methodology isn't working. And so I really think there's a lot of good answers there. There was 100 ways I could have written the book, but I really tried to kind of hone in on this concept of harm reduction, meeting people where they are. And when I go out and speak, I've given 32 talks since the book came out, and I think you might be my 73rd interview.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and that's why it took a while. And
I heard them all.
Yeah.
I know you did multiple times, some of them. And I always say, contact your local harm reduction group. They're the ones on the ground working with the least of us. They're packing Narcan kits. They're, helping people get connected to care and literally saving lives every day. And so if you really want to make a difference, like I was giving a talk a couple weeks ago, and the next week, 2 people had volunteered. One was packing Narcan kits. The other was a retired doctor who was doing wound care. Came out of retirement to do wound care. And I just get goosebumps thinking about, and they're both so happy. They see they're making a difference. It's really cool.
That is really
That is awesome. And it is going to take a number of us, to
pushing
make
like
a
Ed.
change.
I'm going to turn it over to Ed now because he pushes like nobody I know. And I just want to say, I appreciate y'all having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. This will be a great time for us to stop for a commercial break. But Beth, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Of course.
We appreciate
Of course.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, stay tuned. We're going to stop for a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whip-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer prepackaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. Oh my gosh, Andrew, what do you think? That first part, it was so great to have Beth on the show.
Yeah, and I love what she's doing, just the education. Everyone needs to hear what she has to say.
I know.
Watch the show.
You know, and this is another reason too why I love doing these shows is the education, not just because of the therapy part of things, but the educate. 7 million people.
That's mind blowing.
7 flipping million. Just in the opioid thing. I just
opioid alone
blows my mind. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
No, me neither.
Did not realize it was that extreme.
I had no clue either. And I know Ed's going to help us with this. And Beth had to leave because she had other appointments. So again, we just want to say thank you, Beth, for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a half hour with us. It was definitely a privilege and an honor to have you here. And Ed, my gosh, Ed, you've been on the show before. I think it was in February or so that you were of this year that you were on the show sharing a little bit about your story. And we'll do kind of a quick overview of that today too. But one thing I wanted to say is with the 7 million people who are addicted to opioids, and just after watching the series, DOPESICK, my belief is that it's because of the Sackler family that's created this 7 million
exactly
people.
Al. If not for their crimes and lies, we would be nowhere near 7 million people. I mean, doctors used to respect opioids for how addictive they truly are, and it was literally Purdue lies saying less than 1% of patients get addicted.
Yeah.
That really changed whole medical practice. Not only just their salesmen lying, they donated to medical schools. The World Health Organization now, who wrote their pain guidelines? Purdue Pharma wrote the pain guidelines for the World Health Organization because they gave them X amount of money. And so, this opioid epidemic is no accident.
Right.
And like you said, anybody who watches the series DOPESICK or reads Beth's book, DOPESICK, they'll see that this was no accident. And so like you said, I was on your show in February, and pretty much I got to tell my whole story, so I'm going to give a very very big overview here.
Okay.
Basically, President's Day 2001, I was in work. I got a call from my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, her 18-year-old brother, who was a high school senior, went to the party the night before. She went to wake him up, and she called me and she said, "Dad, I can't wake Eddie up and he's turning blue." I told her to call 911. And by the time I got to the house, there was an ambulance outside. I ran up the street and the guys in the ambulance just said, "Sorry, sir." And this was 2001. And like I said, everything, this whole story of mine's detailed on your podcast. And so anybody who's interested and they want to hear the full story about OxyContin, look up the February podcast. The title is Hammer the Abusers. And like Beth mentioned earlier, it was Richard Sackler who said that. Hammer the abusers.
Yeah.
But Beth did a great job. And so I'm just going to go over some of the things that you guys touched on that I wanted to add, but I knew Beth was short on time, so I was saving it. But so I'm very active on social media, Facebook and Twitter. I'm on Instagram, but I hardly know that. But anyway, everyone who watches DOPESICK on Hulu has the same reaction. How are they not in prison?
Yeah.
Every single person, and it is criminal that they have not answered for their crimes. And we're still trying. We had a meeting with the DOJ. We had a rally outside the DOJ in Washington, D.C. Beth Macy was there. Danny Strong, the co-creator of DOPESICK, was there. Rick Mountcastle, who was the 2007 prosecutor. He prosecuted Purdue. He wrote a 120-page memo calling for felony charges. That Deputy Attorney General of the United States buried that memo. The judge never got to see that memo. Another missed opportunity. There's literally hundreds of thousands of people dead and addicted who shouldn't be, because if they would have been charged with crimes in 2007, all the other companies, instead of seeing the green light, they would have saw a red light.
Yeah.
And this epidemic would be nowhere near that it is. But DOPESICK was a great book. The series was great. Beth's new book's also good. So I'll tell you. So Eddie died in February of 2001. In August of 2001, the very first congressional hearing on OxyContin was held in Pennsylvania. 2001. They knew this was a problem in 2001, but nothing happened. They held several hearings. Purdue pumped in millions and millions of dollars. In 2007, they hired Rudy Giuliani. They hired Mary Jo White, former head of SEC, who still works for them.
Jeez.
And they have put literally hundreds of millions of dollars avoiding justice. And DOPESICK, the series, really shone a light on the injustice that it was. Also, so that shone a light. Right now, in selected movie theaters, there's I'm going to call it an artsy film. It's about Nan Goldin, world famous photographer, who protested the Sackler name in all these museums. And a lot of the museums have taken down their name. Laura Poitras, who did the documentary, award-winning documentary on Eric Snowden, she did the documentary of Nan Goldin. And that's going to be coming to HBO in around March. No date set, but it will be on HBO. Then this summer, Painkiller, the very first book on Purdue Pharma and their crimes, came out in 2003. Again, if people were paying attention, if they would have followed up what was in the book, and in 2007, when they prosecuted, they used a lot of the info in this book, Painkiller, in their prosecution. But again, it was at the highest level of the DOJ. Not the guys, not the workers, not the career DOJers, the political appointees sat on the evidence. Purdue paid a $600 million fine in 2007. It was like a slap on the wrist to them.
Yeah.
Other companies saw they got a slap on the wrist, paid a portion of their blood profits. I call it blood profits. You hear about all these literally billion-dollar settlements. So all these billion-dollar settlements, but guess what? The trillions were made. You take all the money all together, trillions were made. The government's clawing back a very small portion, and the cow's out of the barn. The damage is done. And now we're trying, and like Beth's new book, Raising Lazarus, gives you a little bit of hope. You read about all these people trying to do whatever they can, but we need more. We need the government to get serious. We need the government to commit to a COVID type response.
Yeah.
That's what is really needed.
I would have to agree with you on that, Ed. As I said in the first part of the show, my wife and I, we went to a neighborhood protest because they were bringing in a sober living. And I've shared on a show a few times that literally it was like if you've watched the old Frankenstein movies, and they realize he's a monster and they grab their pitchforks and their torches and they're going to go kill this guy because he's a monster. They really don't know who he is as a person.
Yeah.
They just see a monster. It just blew me away how society is looking at this. Let's get the frickin' lynch mob and the pitchforks and the torches to go after the people who have caused this damn problem. Let's not go after those who have used it, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's part of the blame the abuser mentality,
right?
Which is stigma, which Richard Sackler has promoted that more than anyone else. Not only did he literally say hammer the abusers, he put millions of dollars behind that. How? By propping up these pain organizations that echoed his message, that paid freelance writers to put articles in newspapers and magazines. Like I said, the World Health Organization, Purdue Pharma wrote their pain guidelines. Harvard, they donated tons of money. They actually had documentation in Harvard Medical School. So this is how the whole medical field was corrupted.
Yeah.
And
So corrupted.
now we're left with the damage. And now, as you know, today the number one killer is fentanyl.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's actually fentanyl poisoning.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
The Washington Post just came out with a 7-piece article all about the history of it and where we're at. And it's a mess, and it's still a mess. And like I said, until the government does a COVID type response, it's going to get worse.
Yeah. And my wife and I, we went to an event at our state capitol.
I was with you there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Andrea was there. Yeah, Andrea was there. And we went to this event, and just hearing about the overdoses and the fentanyl poisoning. And Sylvia, Sylvia, you've been working with Sylvia on some things. She's a big advocate about this fentanyl poisoning. And I was in shock. Fentanyl poisoning has killed more people than who were killed in World War I and World War II. Put that in your freaking mind and think about it for a minute, and you'll realize how many people have lost their lives because of fentanyl poisoning. And when I was at the gym Monday, I was doing some cardio, and for the first time, I saw them talking about fentanyl poisoning on one of the news stations. First time. And we don't watch the news. We don't watch the news at our home. We haven't for years.
Depressing.
It's very depressing, and it's all bullshit anyway. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
There is news that's good for some things, but a lot of the majority of it
They
is kind of bull crap. Yes,
they
Ed.
actually I watched one World Cup game. I'm not a real big fan, but I watched the USA team. They actually did a PSA commercial on the fentanyl pills that are poisoning kids on the world, during the
Holy
World Cup.
cow.
That
That's
is
awesome.
That's good.
major.
That is major.
It should have been
Yeah.
going on a while. The government, some of this money should be going to billboards. I know parents who pay for billboards out of their own pocket just to warn people. So I belong on Facebook. It's called the Lost Voices of Fentanyl.
Yep.
Anybody involved should look that group up. But to make a long story short, most of the people there have lost their kids within the last couple of years of fentanyl. So I was typing and I told someone the story that in 2001, the very first time I heard the word OxyContin, my son was dead in his bed from it. Very first time I heard it. And the leader of the Lost Voices of Fentanyl, she told me, her name's April Babcock. She said, Ed, what happened to you in 2001 has happened to so many people in my group. The very first time they heard the word fentanyl, their kids were dead from it.
Yeah.
So now, thanks to Lost Voices of Fentanyl, and there's several groups out there trying to get the word out. You gotta warn. The first step of fixing this is to warn everybody, warn the kids. It's not like the old days. If you get any pill, it could be a fake pill. You cannot tell the difference. Fentanyl is
Yeah.
They're
so
pretty
cheap.
now. They're pastel and
Yeah.
Right.
It's
They're
horrible.
But some of them, the more dangerous ones, actually, I think it was Chicago. 2 college students bought Adderall. They had big exams. It was in medical school. So they bought Adderall to try to cram for an exam, which they shouldn't do, but they did. It wasn't Adderall. It was fake. It was fentanyl. The one girl died. The other girl almost died. That is an out and out poisoning.
Yeah.
Just today, the last chapter of the Washington Post is about 5 people in Colorado. They had a little party. They all snorted a line of cocaine, and they all almost immediately died because instead of cocaine, it was almost pure fentanyl.
Oh, geez.
Oh my.
Maybe it was a mix-up. They don't know. They investigated it, and they could not really figure out what exactly happened. But they're dead. Whether it was intentional or unintentional.
So you think the
Yeah.
dealers are like lacing,
Some
mingling
of them
things?
are lacing
Yeah.
the
Some
coke
are.
because the fentanyl is actually cheaper than the coke. And not only that, they want regular customers. They don't necessarily want to kill
They're
you.
just kind of
They want to get
teasing
you
it,
hooked.
plugging it in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like with pretty much any dealer,
But
they'll,
they ain't mixing
Yeah.
it in a lab. They're mixing it in their apartment. And if
Yeah.
you put a little too
That's
much
scary.
in it, just like the pills, they're pressing these pills. They're not necessarily trying to kill someone, but if someone happens to die, they really don't care.
yeah.
But they
No, they
want
got
to
their
get you
money.
addicted. So I just saw a thing today. Actually, it was in the Washington Post. So maybe 10 years ago, and I'm making up these numbers because I don't have it, but like the fake pills had like 1.2 of fentanyl in them 10 years ago. Now they have 2.7, which is a lethal overdose, which is a lethal pill for someone not used to it. But the people who've been doing these pills, any opioid, whether it was OxyContin or heroin or fentanyl, once you do it, you need more and more. You need to increase the strength. But, now most of the pills today, the DEA just announced 6 out of 10 pills have a fatal amount. Now, someone who's been popping these pills for a year, that's not fatal to them. But if Al has a headache and his friend says, "Here, I got a Percocet, Al," and Al pops it, and it's a fentanyl pill, bye-bye, Al.
Yeah, it's crazy how bad this has really gotten. I mean, and we have to be careful on this end. We've already had a show pulled because we mentioned a certain word.
Right.
And so you spoke about it earlier. We need to get this out on the fentanyl. It needs to be thrown out there as strong as, I mean,
People need to know what's going on.
yeah, when COVID came around, they were really pushing and letting people know, how bad this is and what it can do.
That's what we need.
The same thing,
The
like
same
Ed
energy.
said, we need that same
It is an
energy
epidemic.
to say it is an epidemic. Oh yeah, heck
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
If
by
they put-
tenfolds.
And it could have
They
been
put
taken care of.
1/10 of the effort and money they put into COVID, they
Wow.
could get a handle on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
and unfortunately, like I said, Beth's new book is full of great people doing whatever they can, but they're individual people who maybe affect a couple hundred people. You need the government. There's 300 million people in this country.
Yeah.
We need the government to
On board.
commit and fully get involved.
Well, at least I don't know. I'm just going to say it. At least the ones that are not corrupt.
It's
And
sad.
and that's a small
And that's a
percent.
small
That's a
percentage.
small percent, because it seems like, and I've never cared for politics much, pretty much my whole life. And it seems to me that it's gotten to the point where it's not what, we can do for the people. It's what can you
What can
do
we do
for
for
me
ourselves?
so
Yeah,
I can
line our
go
pockets.
take my family on a cruise to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Who cares what happens over here?
We're like, we won't look
So-
here. We'll line our pockets. We'll
Yeah.
turn a blind eye
Yeah.
to this and we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. And there are so many people losing their loved ones because of this,
Mhm.
Right.
so
So-
many.
If anybody wants to get involved, like I said, especially with the fentanyl, look up Lost Voices of Fentanyl on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, I think it's lvof.org. I'm not exactly sure, but they definitely have a website. One of the things that we're still asking for justice for Purdue Pharma and the Sacklers.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody can look me up on Twitter. I'm @EJB1893, EJB1893. And if you go to my pinned thread, there's a lot of info. There's a couple interviews with Beth on there, with Danny Strong. Facebook, it's Relatives Against Purdue Pharma. And again, we didn't get all into that again because in February we got into full details.
Yeah.
But after Eddie died, I started a website and I had parents contact me, and we formed a group and we called ourselves Relatives Against Purdue Pharma. And in 2003, we did the second protest against Purdue Pharma. And I couldn't tell you how many I've done since then. I did have to take a break. I was at work one night, I got a call, and the lady says, my name's Beth Macy, and I'm a reporter and I'm writing a book. And this was in 2016. So in the book DOPESICK, I am in chapter 3. And she talks about about Eddie and rap. And then in her latest book, I got involved in the Purdue bankruptcy, which I call a bankruptcy scam. And that is a whole big, and Beth goes over a lot of that in her new book. So there's a lot. It is a lot. They drag it out. Right now with the Purdue bankruptcy, they lost on appeal. The appeals court said this is illegal. The appeals judge. So now it's at the Second Circuit. They are reviewing it. And we've been waiting 6 months now to see what they say. So people just ask me today, well, what's the next step, Ed? We got to find out what the Second Circuit says, and then we'll form a plan. But at the top of my Twitter and the top of Facebook is how to send an email to DOJ. Anybody watching this, if you watched DOPESICK and it made you mad, go to the top of my IDs, send an email to DOJ. Let them know. Let them know you want an investigation. Just tell them to follow the money. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, and they should be able to do that pretty easy, right?
Yep.
Maybe instead of the IRS looking at watching what we're doing all the time in our bank accounts, maybe they should just turn the IRS just on them.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the Sacklers knew that eventually the lawsuits would get through. So the first 10 years of OxyContin, they withdrew under $100 million. Okay. The next 10 years after 2007, and they start to feel the heat, they took 10 billion out of the company, and they sent most of it overseas.
Wow.
Yep.
Jeez almighty.
And they can prove this. It's been talked about, it's documented.
Yeah.
But yet no one prosecutes.
You know, and it's so crazy, Ed, because let's just say I'm a dealer. Let's say I deal OxyContin. I have a connection and I deal OxyContin. If I got busted, I'd be in prison right now.
Oh,
I'd be in prison for selling OxyContin. These guys have killed millions of people and nothing's happening. Nothing.
When Eddie died, there was a pill mill doctor flooding Philadelphia area with OxyContin. Okay. They watched him for 8 months. Unfortunately, during that 8 months, he put hundreds of thousands of pills on the street.
Yeah.
My son got one of them last pills, but he got a 30-year prison sentence. But he followed what the Purdue reps were telling him. He bought into it. That was his defense anyway. But yet, the higher you go up, nothing happens.
Right.
And it's not right. And
It's corrupt.
people like me were literally begging the DOJ, follow the money, do your job. And until they tell me we're not going to do it, I'm going to keep on asking them to do it.
Good for you, Ed. Good for you and all the hundreds and thousands of other people that are going after this. I know a lot of our listeners have seen, you know, Sylvia, who's been on our show as a guest co-host and a guest. She was here with us with Ed, and I mean, she became a huge advocate right after that. You know, she's like, this is crazy. And matter of fact, her son just lost a good friend this summer because of fentanyl poisoning. You know, and
most families have been affected, or they know a family infected.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you talk to someone who doesn't know someone who's been directly affected. And it's easy to count the deaths, which are underreported, by the way. But the deaths are one thing. But for every person who dies, there's family, there's friends, there's orphans. I mean, it goes on and on. I
Yeah.
will mention one more book, which actually is one of Beth Macy's favorite books. It's called Demon Copperhead. Okay.
Demon what?
Demon Copperhead. That's the name of the
Okay.
book.
Comprehend?
Demon Copperhead. It's not what you think, but it's a fiction book. Barbara Kingsolver, a very famous author, wrote it. But what she works in there, she works in how OxyContin destroyed middle America. In this great book, which I just seen New York Times named it the #2 book of the year.
Wow.
Oprah Winfrey loves it. It was on her book club. So if reading DOPESICK, a factual book's not your thing and you're into fiction, get Demon Copperhead and you'll learn all about Purdue and the opioid epidemic in like a very clever way, how she tells it.
My gosh. I'm sure I could go back to the notes from when we posted your show, Ed, to get a lot of that information, but anything that you would like to send us in the meantime to make sure that we get it on our caption, feel free to, so we can make sure we get it up there. Okay.
I will. Yeah. I was just looking at the show and I saw on Spotify and you wrote it up great. So if you can just look at that and copy and paste some stuff, that would be great.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I highly recommend Beth's book, Raising Lazarus. I got a lot of praise. And like I said, it gives you some hope. I mean, it's literally David versus Goliaths.
Wow.
And we're all Davids. And it's going to take a whole bunch of us to turn this tide around.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It definitely is. And that's where we, the people, come in, I think, really. We've got to jump on this and definitely make a change. I'd like to see more protests where they show it on TV and it's just so many freaking people that you're just seeing for miles.
There will be a big one.
Yeah.
It's going to be in September. Lost Voices of Fentanyl will be back in DC. I've been to Washington 3 times in the last year.
Wow.
And yes, so Lost Voices of Fentanyl, that's definitely the biggest, and they're getting bigger all the time. They have 23,000 people now in their group.
Good.
And unfortunately, it's going to grow as the deaths grow. And we're trying. The parents are trying.
Yeah.
Because it's horrible. It's. I can honestly say, you lose a child, the sun will never shine as bright. The night will never be as cool.
Yeah.
It's just something, and too many people are suffering the same fate.
Well, and it's, yeah, the suffering doesn't end, right, Ed? And I think you said it just a little earlier on the show. It doesn't end, because when you lose a loved one, whether it's your child or someone else, that pain stays with you, and it affects you. And by it affecting you, it's affecting other people that's in your life. It's just like with the addictions, right? Anybody that has a family member that has an addiction, like my buddy told me, I was addicted to my wife's addiction, and that's exactly what happens to you in your life.
Affects the whole family, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Andrew, is there anything you'd like to throw out there?
No, I'm still kind of dumbfounded with the
well, you watch DOPESICK on Hulu, and when you do, you talk to Al about it. I'll be listening.
On my bucket list.
I'll be listening to your review.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Ed, again, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you so much. I'm very blessed and honored that we met this year, and we had you on the show to share your story and the work that you were doing. And I know you said, I think it was somewhere you took a little break, but then you got right back into it again, and you're a huge voice. And I tip my hat off to you. All of us here in the studio tip our hats off to you for the work that you're doing with so many other people. It definitely takes people like yourselves. Unfortunately, something bad has to happen, for that to go forward. However, it seems like that's how life is. A lot of times blessings will come out of tragedies. And I really believe there is a blessing at the end of this, somehow, some way.
One of the minor blessings, I have met a lot of good people like yourself, Beth Macy, literally thousands of people I've met who I would never have been in one, never ever. But life's crazy,
It is.
Do the best we can. And, we're just trying to help others avoid joining the horrible club no one wants to be in.
Yeah. This is definitely not a club that you want to be having a jacket with patches on. That's for sure.
No.
Not at all. Again, Ed, thank you so much for your time. Greatly, greatly appreciate it, man. I love you, brother. And again, I appreciate everything you're doing. Andrea, thank you for being here today with us.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate it. I'm glad that you were here to hear this today.
Yeah, I am very glad.
I think it was
It's nice meeting you, Ed.
Yeah, nice.
I think you were actually kind of shocked of how today's worked out, right? It's kind of been different from other times you've been a
Very
guest.
educational. It's very sad. It's super sad to see the massive, it is an epidemic, just the growth of something horrible. And now it's like trying to play catch up. Oh, now we got to take care of this, but the big people that need to be on board too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the more people that are talking about it, like, the lost voices of fentanyl and that the more voices we get out there, someone's going to listen.
Yeah.
Somebody will listen, and when we were talking about the fentanyl poisoning, we got a young man in our studio who was poisoned by fentanyl, and I'm happy to say he's still here, and it's Brad's son,
Wow.
So he understands a little bit of it, I would say, or quite a bit of it, because he was there. Yeah, he just kind of looked his eyes up like, yeah, no kidding. And again, we just want to say thank you to all our listeners, all our many sponsors. Oh my gosh, guys, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for you guys. You guys see in our studio changing all the time, and it's happening because of you guys. It's not nothing that we're doing anything special on this, and it's because of all you. And big thank you to Resilience Talk Network, Brad and Mason. Thank you for all the work that you guys do. You guys work jobs and then also help this show look really good. So thank you guys. And thank you to all our many guests, past and present, and all our past and present co-hosts. And who else can I say thank you to? I always want to make sure I get my thank yous out because I'm just so grateful, for everyone. So thank you guys. And gosh, if you guys, when you see this show and you've got stuff to share, man, get it out there. You've got all of Ed's information, his social media. Let us know. If you just can even get it to us, I can make sure Ed gets it. Ed keeps track of a lot of our stuff. I'll see him like quite a bit of our stuff. So guys, help us spread the word, man. Let's save some lives, and unfortunately, while we're saving some lives or hopefully getting that direction, there are others that are going to lose their lives, but eventually that ripple's going to catch up. Hopefully we can meet it and start passing it. So, and it's going to take all of us to make that happen. So remember this: addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.